And joining me in the studio here is Mr. Paul Demain, a LCO member and representative. You've been doing a lot of stuff since you've kind of retired from
Yeah.
the the LCO news business. Uh, Life
Be,
has gotten a lot more or busier for you.
yeah, being retired means you have times to do everything else. And I want to correct you. I live at Lakota Ray, and am an Ojibwe descendant, but I am
Ah,
an enrolled citizen of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. So
oh,
I've come transplanted here back with some of my distant Ojibwe relatives.
yeah. Oh, I sit corrected. Thank
Yeah,
you.
but it's been a good day. I
Yeah,
heard the discussion this morning on the Supreme Court upholding the Indian Child Welfare Act, and that's something that was important to me. I was adopted out when I was 18 months old,
okay,
and grew up in Wausau, Wisconsin, in an adopted home, and was one of the first persons, as far as I know, in Wisconsin who utilized a court ruling having to do with a Hannibal Potawatomi adoptee. And what they
hmm,
did is they challenged the court rules to close your adoption records permanently upon adoption. They were able to secure a court order to open up his file in order to determine whether or not he was a member of the Hannibal Potawatomi tribe
okay,
and owned assets. And so it was really under the loss of property clause that you can't deprive an individual citizen in the United States of their property. And tribal citizens own a right to treaty rights and
yeah,
annuity payments and land and so forth. So the adoptees have a right to discover their tribal property uh, capabilities through that process. And the Indian Child Welfare Act came out of that as a federal standard to try to standardize everything across the United States in regards to those court rulings that allowed tribal individuals to determine whether they're members of tribes. So it took an extraction of your birth certificate to be able
yeah,
to do that. So, yeah, interesting. And I'm glad they upheld it. I think tribes are working with a variety of placement processes, which
mm-hmm,
does lead to some indigenous children being placed in non-Indian homes,
right.
especially with agreements of access to their tribal government services, health services, property, and so forth. And so I think it was a good decision, and it wasn't based on the race baiting that the opponents of that law put up. It's really based on citizenship
Right.
and property rights, not race.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Wow. Very interesting.
yeah.
Well, what's happening this weekend? Maybe you can give some introduction to what this event is about and its purpose and what's going to be happening.
Well, I think I can do that, certainly. There's always been historically a very active community in the Chequamegon Bay area. If you look at the history of it, even if you look at the past history of the environmental record of the Lakota Ray tribe when it was progressive and a leader, you want to remember that Lakota Ray filed an injunction against offshore drilling in Chequamegon Bay and got an injunction against that on behalf of protecting their water rights. So
Yeah.
Lakota Ray used to have a reputation of standing in front of some of these environmental issues and advocating for the protection of those rights. Based on treaty rights and laws. And so there's a whole vast array of things happening, Mark, along Line 5. There are numerous challenges by Bay Mills, Indian community in Michigan against Enbridge pipelines in their ceded territories. There's the Michigan lawsuit against uh, the Mackinac Crossing Tunnel, which is
Right.
in process. There's
Mm-hmm.
a Bad River lawsuit in which the federal judges has found that Enbridge has trespassed on Bad River land, that they are going to owe Bad River that portion of the profits that they've made in the transportation of that oil across, same
Sure.
as Michigan case. An active trespass means that you can't profit off of it, even though the judge that's been hearing this cases, and there's two of them. One's Bad River versus Enbridge to get the line out of the Bad River Reservation, and then there's Enbridge countersued the Bad River tribe for damages, and they countersued Michigan, trying
Mm.
to prevent them invoking a 1977 treaty. And this is a pipeline that was put in that had a 50-year life that's now 70 years old and has regular anomalies and
Yeah.
these digs to help repair it along the line. It's had spilled some several million gallons of oil product along Line 5 already on, I think, more than 28 spills over the history of it, and
Mm-hmm.
people are concerned about it. And so you're reading about it on a regular basis. In the Chequamegon Bay area, you have the coalition, uh, Line 5 Coalition, and you have Communities United by Water, which are really a whole host of organizations, some 178 that we've identified, business people with an interest in water, Madeline Island businesses, in which the entire island is based on water issues and water
Right.
recreation. And if there should be a spill, you can't run ferries. There would be a shutdown, there would be booms and those kinds of things. There's scenarios.
Right.
What's the emergency response of La Pointe, Bayfield, Washburn, because all that water comes by, the current flows through that area and into Lake Superior. And what happens to not only the tribal fishery, but the commercial fishery, which is based off of uh, Madeline Island, based on the historic availability
Mm-hmm.
of fish there. So there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people involved. It's not just indigenous people, and it's just not environmentalists, but it's the business community. It's people worried about bottling water. It's people who are worried
Mm-hmm.
about mines. It's people who are worried about manufacturing activities that would pollute the region. They're concerned about potential mining activities in the Pinokies, and they're all hitched together. So people are getting together this weekend. First of all, tomorrow at, let's see if I can get it right here, find my list here. Memorial Park at 422 3rd Street, which is, I think, the courthouse there, very nearby. In Ashland, Wisconsin, from 3 until 6 p.m. They're having a rally there where they're just going to go sit in front of the courthouse with their signs and so forth and kind of get organized for what seems to be a weekend of activities that have
Mm-hmm.
been organized by various groups. And so there is a registration form for people who want to participate in Saturday and Sunday events. You need to go to Communities United by Water, and under the event tab, you will find two two segments there. One having
Yeah.
to do with this rally on Friday, and the other one's called Walk Line 5. And you'll have to register for that to get the details of where to go and where to meet. There are camping availabilities from what I'm reading. Here, there are going to be a number of teaching and educational forums presented to individuals registering for that Saturday and Sunday events having to do with identifying endangered species, and they'll be taking people out on to the proposed reroute to look for endangered plant life and animals and so forth, and to be able to try to identify that for the technical end of the permitting process, which is a couple years behind, in part because of what happened in Minnesota with Line Free, with aquifer breaches and the spills of drilling matter and everything. Enbridge is still attempting to repair some of those um, the damages to those aquifers and what they call this breaking out of drilling material that they had some like 22 different active spills of drilling material into rivers and shorelines and so forth during their drilling process that they're still cleaning up 2 years after they put that line in.
Mm.
And I think that
Wow.
caused scientists and hydrologists, former DNR people, there was some 3,800 comments submitted during the environmental impact statement process. And so there's a challenge within the federal agencies and the state agencies that are seeing this permit. Army Corps of Engineers already had an opinion about the reroute. EPA has an opinion about the reroute
Mm.
that goes down around Copper Falls State Park, saying
Yeah.
there's no way to mitigate an accident up there. No, I mean, if you've been back in there,
Yeah.
it's a difficult place to either fight a fire or a spill or put booms in and everything with ever. And so EPA has really written a negative reflection on the initial aspect. And so there's some things going on between these lawsuits, between the activity of the community that's reflected in Enbridge's response to this all. And
Mm-hmm.
Enbridge is responding by pouring money everywhere
Yeah.
into media. If you want fishing derby for your high school, if you want food for your shelf, if you want a clinic, a health clinic at LCO, they pretty much purchased every available Indian that was for sale in Minnesota a couple years ago. And anyone who wants money,
Mm.
go. You want to You want to check Biffy's, you know, for Enbridge, they got jobs for Indians right now because they're handing out money in every direction.
Wow.
And it's really showing.
Yeah.
Even with the running of Tim Michaels, which was Enbridge's, a foreign, you think about this, a foreign corporation's choice for governor, helped them organize it, helped, thought that they could get the Democratic labor unions to vote for a Republican candidate and win the election, and he lost. It's the
Yeah.
first time I saw a foreign country interfere in the state politics by running the main contractor for Enbridge as the governor, which is the case. So people are responding not only to what they see as Enbridge's response to the social contract they need to operate, with the pouring of billions of dollars. And 2 years ago they spent $300 million in northern Minnesota on Indian contractors. There's probably spending more than
Mm-hmm.
that in Wisconsin,
Right.
and it shows. I mean, the other day there was a sale on their stock. Their stock has gone from 55 high to around 38. So if you invested $580,000, it's now worth $370,000 in investment equity. And Enbridge is the highest dividend payer in the industry, which is good for dividends, but
Right.
you've lost value on your stock investment.
Mm.
The reason they're the highest dividend payers in the industry is they don't want that flight. And I'm seeing stock analysis that say that now with the higher interest rate, Enbridge is in a situation where they really need to watch what they're doing because they have to borrow money to fund these projects or to pay the dividends off of very high interest loans because they are a company that's built on borrowing money and then paying it back
Yeah.
as they develop
Interesting.
themselves.
I wanted to mention I was on that site. We're actually showing that website, Communities United by Water.org. And on one of their pages there, they show this map of the Line 5 reroute and the expansion. And I was surprised where the existing Line 5 goes across two major rivers. The expansion will cross at least four, if not five or six tributaries
Well,
to those
even more.
rivers, even
Uh,
more than that. There's little creeks
22,
and
22
rivers.
bodies of water, some of
Yeah.
the main, the White River, the Bad River, and everything. And so,
I
indeed,
just totally surprised that we're going from just two pieces. Now we're going to spread it out across a
right.
major portion of all these tributaries.
What it does is, I think the current pipeline is something like 12 miles running kind of south of Highway 2 through the
Mm-hmm.
reservation,
Yep.
crosses the Bad River, the major waterway. If it spills, it pollutes the Kakagan sloughs and the wild rice, and 40,000 pounds and $800 million worth of wild rice products and their fishery and everything else.
Wow.
The cone of danger only increases with the reroute. Originally, Enbridge had a plan to go really tightly around the reservation on a shorter route that would have been 38 miles, and they chose the 44-mile range to go a little bit further out. But in doing that, they actually increased the potential cone of danger because now
Yeah.
you have 22 rivers, waterways, creeks that flow into the Bad River and still flow into the Kakaga
Right.
sloughs and into the fisheries. And so it's a choice that Bad River has opposed in terms of the reroute. They want it out of their watershed. They don't want it just out of the reservation. They
Right.
want it out of their watershed. And they have prevailed in an awful lot of the subjects that have gone before the court. The court's ruled that Enbridge is trespassing. And it's really odd that, if I set up a lemonade stand in your front yard with your permission and paid you $100 a year to utilize that site,
Mm.
and you had a good lemonade sales stand on my property, and I decided I wanted to use that property for some other means, and you say, this year I'm not going to renew your lease to put your lemonade stand in my front yard because I
Yeah.
want to put a pool there or something else. I want to do whatever it is, flower garden. And the guy says, no, I'm going to go into court. I'm going to not only force you to leave me stay here with my lemonade stand, but I'm going to force you to put a electrical line out here, and I want to put a billboard out here to improve my capabilities to earn income off of your land that I'm trespassing on.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting to me that,
Uh,
here the Chippewa Flowage, it's easy to condemn the land and move Indians off because, but it always makes me wonder, like at Lac de Flambeau, where non-Indians want to lease land and they want to lead road rights and access, and when lease is up, they don't want to leave.
Right.
They did that on the north end with the Chippewa Treaty Fishing Camp. or they built up their estate there, and then they didn't want to move off when the lease was up. They've done it at Flambeau. They've done it at Bad River. So it's interesting how fast Indians can be moved off of land that's needed for corporations and for real estate development and everything else. But it takes a long time for Indians to be able to say, look, your lease is up. It's time to get out of here. Kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah. And I've talked about that Lac de Flambeau story a couple of times we've been following here in WOJB. And it's just interesting how really now the native communities really have the upper hand because the courts are realizing, sorry, this is treaty lands and this is a treaty that's been here for centuries.
Right.
And it's just they're upholding those rules. And that's been really cool.
The courts are changing and realizing. I think the federal judge here, Connolly, just doesn't want to make it. He doesn't want to shut this down because there's so many federal issues. There's treaties, Enbridge invoked a 1977 treaty that says, oh, it wipes out the treaties of the tribes to reserve clean
Mm,
water and clean resources and everything. Our 1977 treaty that allows us to make millions of dollars a day trespassing on the Bad River Reservation supersedes all these other treaties that the U.S.
mm,
government. And so those are all difficult jurisdictional arguments that are working their way through the court. I remember reading an early 1900 ruling by a judge involving an Indian person who had his 80-acre allotment ripped off, and the judge basically says this is a legal breach. It's not worthy of doing it, but I can't change the law because if I rule that you had your 80-acre allotment stolen, can you imagine what it would do to the rest of the United States? So you can steal land from Indians and get away with it, and judges are afraid to make rulings against them because, oh my God, if I say that this was theft, look at what it's going to do. How many other allotments and Indians are going to show up wanting to say, look, at my allotment was ripped off too. 260 of them in the Pinocchis under the half-breed clause of the 1854 treaty were ripped off by real estate agents and bankers and everything who had a scheme to do that. And that's what the Pinocchi mining claim is made up almost entirely 260 80-acre Santee, Sioux, and Chippewa allotments. So let's get back to this because we got some other things going
I
on,
wanted
Mark.
to get back to the event and the
Yeah,
purpose of the event. It's really not Saturday's events is not really to do the protest, even though that's today. I had it on my calendar for the solidarity rally today. Is that
no,
what
no,
you
the
had?
solitary rally is on Friday.
Which
That's
is today.
well, which is today. Then I'm on my way. Yeah. Well, Mark, I'm a day off. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's today. Thanks for pointing it out to me.
Today.
It's going on today. If I said tomorrow, I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Tomorrow is the training. And so we
Yes.
do have, my understanding is they do have quite a few people coming up there that are technical people in terms of
Okay.
woods people. So you're going to
Right.
have people who are good trainers and everything. And like I says, part of this is you have to register for it. Not all the information is here. I don't even have the information because I haven't been part of the planning committee on this
Okay.
events. Chiquamegamay Bay does well organizing themselves over the years I've seen, and they're doing it again. So you have to register to get in there. I'm sure that's to make sure that we know who's coming in there and they have some control over the individuals that are arriving and control over asking certain people to leave if that's the case. And so they want it to be peaceful. They want it to be educational. They want some constructive things to happen in terms of being able to help the DNR, EPA, and other agencies do their own job by making sure that what is going on there is clearly looked at. People already have also getting aware of where that line is going to go and actually
Right.
seeing the beauty of the Copper
Right.
Falls area. So there's self-guided walks. There's a women's organization up there that organized an online Line 5 route. So you can go in a car and you can, in this brochure, you can go to different places. It's going to tell you where you are along the line and what kind of things are along there. So there's a lot of self-guided tours that are going to go on. There's going to be a walk at Copper Falls State Park. There is a potluck meal at the town of Morris tomorrow evening that's being sponsored by the group. There's a
Okay.
pancake feed. I'm not sure where that is on Saturday morning. Bring your sausages and maple syrup if you want to contribute to that. But go online to find the details at communities unitedbywater.org.
And that's where you register online. I'm showing the web page now. If you're watching on our Facebook page or YouTube channel, you can see that registration site. So you must register there just again so they know who's coming. And I noticed part of this training is going to be on how to document rare and sensitive species that you might find along your hike,
Right.
because this is something that's going to be help to defend, these lines happening in these tributaries.
These are typical things that other agents should be doing, but a lot of them end up doing it by analysis. That is they look
Oh,
at other reports and say, well, we know this and that and everything. But we've discovered some rare species up in the Pinokies, and they'll be looking for certain turtles and birds and other things that
yeah,
are up there. And if it's a nice day out, and it looks like it's going to be, it's just going to be a beautiful day to go out there and take a look. The primary issue up there right now is the meander, which have been part of a couple emergency court hearings, and is an argument when that pipeline was put in 70 years ago. It was 258 feet from the meander that the line runs through. The Bad
right.
River was in the Bad River is a meandering river. It changes route every year. That meander now is about 7 to 11 feet wide.
Mm,
And a couple of years ago, when we had that big flood up there that knocked out all the bridges, it lost 14 or 15 feet. So if there was something similar to that to happen, people would expect that pipe to be exposed and taken out by the activities. And
sure.
that's the concern of people right now, that Enbridge is playing chicken with that line, and that another flood-like activity trough that occurred a few years ago could
Hmm.
happen, and that would lead to some kind of a disaster. So there's a lot of concern about that up there.
Yeah. Wow. Well, just to review, we have an event coming up this weekend starting today of a solidarity rally for shutting down Line 5. This will be at Memorial Park, located at 422 3rd Street in Ashland, and that starts at 4 o'clock. And then tomorrow,
It's actually, they reset it for 3 because
oh,
they
they
had
did.
people interested in arriving early. So it's
Oh,
3.
okay.
I
Well, it
saw that.
starts at 3 o'clock. And then on Saturday, June 17th, starting at 1 o'clock. Doesn't say the location, but do you
That's
know
why you
what?
got to register.
Yeah, it
Yeah, I know.
does.
I don't know where the
Yeah,
location is, and
it
that's
does say,
part of security and clearance, and
sure.
scrutinizing who's coming in. So you got to register to find out some of the
Yep.
information.
It does say more details will be provided upon signing up. So they have that schedule. It'll go through some training at 3 o'clock, and then at 5:30 a potluck and discussion and strategizing, and then 8 o'clock a campfire, stargazing, firefly watching, all sorts of stuff into the evening. And like you said, Saturday, 8 o'clock, the pancake breakfast will start. And then 10 o'clock till 1 says choose your adventure to do species monitoring, hiking, hike at Copper Falls, and self guided tour
Yeah.
groups. Yeah.
CommunitiesUnitedByWater.org, and stargazing only if the smoke from
Yes.
the burning Canadian earth that's dried out from global
Uh,
warming, blah, 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 So, and real quickly, we've got a couple other events coming up
okay.
July 7th, 8th, and 9th at Mooning Guanacaning Revival, Red Man's Market, Music for the Water, which is
Oh, yes.
ordered. Again, something that brings together a lot of the business, musicians, artisans, and market on Madeline Island. A lot of water protectors, a lot of talk about the
Yeah.
water at that. And then this is all leading up to a huge event, international gathering of the Mackinac Labor Day Bridge Walk on Monday, September 4th, which people are aiming to have a couple thousand people on the Mackinac Bridge Walk, which is 40 years old and draws 20 to 25,000 people on
Mm-hmm.
September 4th on that bridge. And there are delegations of people who are going to be there. And then, of course, the Petoskey Waters Life Festival is that Saturday before that,
Oh, okay.
hosted by the Little Grand Traverse Band of Odawa Indians in Petoskey. That's on going to be like September 2nd concert down there and everything. So we expect a big delegation of people on the bridge, along with Governor Gretchen and other people walking on September 4th. Stop in there, stop into the uh, Mooning Guanacaning Revival on June 7th, 8th, and 9th. There'll be a lot of people over on Madeline Island just having a good time. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
love the region for what it is. It's
Yeah.
water-based region, and that's
Yeah.
why you have people concerned about their business interest and their environmental concerns.
Whoa. Wow. Well, thank you, Paul, for coming in on such short notice. I didn't give you much notice when I was giving you a call, and I'm
I
just
thought I
glad
had
that
an extra day to
yeah,
prepare, and now it's Friday
it's
already.
Friday already. Oh man.
See you in
Uh,
Ashland this afternoon. We won't see you, but we'll see other people.
Yeah. All right.